Thank you, thank you, thank you. All right. Thanks, man. All righty. Well, we're on line 2, so I'll just give it a second to see if anyone jumps on. It's much easier when it's just in person rather than having to like look over here. But how are you both today? Good. How long you guys been with Silver Creek? Or I'm assuming you're with Silver Creek.
It's been
2 months. Okay.
Yeah, I'm 3-4 months, but just moved here.
So nice. Okay. Where?
Temecula.
Yeah. Yeah, very cool. One of my best friends is from Temecula.
Okay.
I grew up in San Jose, actually, so not southern, but. And are you from here? Are you from here?
Born and raised, but lived in Bellingham, Washington.
Oh, nice. Very cool. My wife is from the Seattle area, so very close. Is anybody online? Let's see. I think we might get away with it. Sweet. All right. Welcome. Are you guys so new agents or just new to Silver Creek? In Temecula? Okay. Oh, well, thank you for, is it your service? Is that what you say to that as well? Thank you for your service. Thanks for keeping us, everyone safe. Yeah. Very cool. What brought you up here? Yep. Yep. Enough said. Very cool. Why Boise?
We did a lot of travel all around for the last 10 years of planning. But
Okay.
The last 5 years, COVID era, we did a lot of travel to figure out where we wanted to be.
Mm-hmm.
My wife used to be a flight attendant, so she went all over the country trying to find different areas. I did some expeditions up in this area, really kind of fell in love with this area. Around Washington, Oregon as well. Just overall felt like this was a better fit for our family.
Very cool.
Our daughter just got married in December. She's going to fall here as well.
Nice.
She's a teacher in Temecula when she finished the school years.
Congratulations to her. That's awesome. Very cool. We do have one person. Sarah, good morning to you. All right, before we kind of dive into this, so what I like to do in the very beginning is, do you guys have anything off the top of your head that you're like, I hope he hits this today, or I hope whatever, or if it's just kind of like, hey, I'm just showing up to see what you got to say.
The latter.
The latter?
One thing I have is
yeah. And just so you know, I'm going to repeat the question so they can hear or so Sarah can hear. But
just how much negotiation there is.
Yeah,
in construction.
Perfect. We'll definitely hit on negotiation. Sarah, did you have any questions that you specifically wanted us to hit on today regarding new construction? Just want to make sure that I am hitting everything. You got to type it out. Okay. Well, if I see it pop up, I'll hit. Oh, what to do after an inspection? Perfect. Perfect. Karen is the newer agent, and she's doing a new construction deal with a custom builder, so wanting to learn a lot. Perfect. Karen, when you get a chance, if you want to put the builder's name in there, just so we can make sure to hit the right stuff, that'd be super helpful. But awesome. So let's dive in. So I'm Nick Staub. I have been an agent with Silver Creek for about 3 years now, but I've been an agent for 7. I started as an agent with Toll Brothers, which is a builder. It was Coleman Homes, and then Toll Brothers came in and bought them. That was kind of right when I was there. So I got my feet wet in the industry working for the builder, just to learn as much as I could. And then after working there for a year, I decided to kind of come onto this side of things, and it's been great. But every builder is different, so everything I say today will have a little bit of a caveat. Connor Construction, all right. The builder used the wrong tile in the bathroom. That's a bummer. All right, cool. Well, let's dive in here. So first off, why new construction? Clients may come to you and say, hey, do I want new construction or do I want a resale? Obviously, you can't tell them like what they want, but some of the things that new construction offers that resale does not, some of them are very, very obvious, like a brand new home compared to a used home. But it typically will provide more options for the buyer based on, well, their price point. There's more options to pick the area, if they like a specific house. Sometimes there's great incentives, like when the market's kind of weird, you can get some pretty good incentives. So CBH is a home builder here, Corey Barton Homes. They constantly have incentives, $20,000, $30,000, $40,000 off, which can be super beneficial for what I've found, either first-time home buyers or investors who are looking to get into something. How do I say this? They're not looking for the high end. They're just looking for something that works for what they need. So first-time home buyers is great because typically they don't have as much liquidity to be able to put down the cash to make things flow like they need. So that $30,000, $40,000 incentive can be used for all kinds of stuff. But second thing is time frame. So let's say you have a buyer who lives out of state, and they know they're not going to be moving in till whatever, a year from now or 9 months from now. Typically, build job timeframes are 8 to 9 months right now, depending. The custom ones can be longer. If you have one of those, pretty rad, like the $2 million, $3 million customs. But I've not had one of those yet. So, and it just kind of depends on what's right for the buyer. And then we'll get into talking about spec homes as well, which would be basically move-in ready. And then, yeah, everything is new. We talked about that. Customization, put a little star next to that one because not all builders are going to allow customization. If you are doing a build job, typically there's going to be more wiggle room as far as customizing certain things. But unless you go for the full custom builder, it's going to be, the customization will be the tile, the paint, the appliances, not necessarily the floor plan or the layout. And then the warranty. Still, most builders are going to offer their 1-year warranty through the builder. And then like CBH, theirs transfers over to a different company for the next 4 years, I believe. Or no, maybe it's 9 years, but we'll get into that as well. And then, so Connor Construction, by the way, before I forget, that's I'm sure you know, that's a very high-end builder. So they build in Highland Cove out near Crane Creek. Chris Connor, they build like $2-3 million houses. So that's going to be a little different, but we'll hit on that too. So, yeah, let's dive into it. And if anyone has any questions at any point, feel free to stop me because I'll just keep talking. So the first, challenges. So some of the challenges with a new construction home can be the timelines, the build times. So if you're looking from, hey, we're going to write this contract, we're going to build our own house, and then we're going to close on it. Typically, that's, again, going to be like the 8-9 month time frame from writing the contract, doing all the selections, having the house being built, and then closing on it. The other option is a spec home. So those are anything that the builder has already planned out. They say, hey, here's the house, here's the lot it's on. It can be in any stage of the build process. When the market's super hot, sometimes they'll put something on the MLS that, hey, we haven't even dug yet, but this is the house that's going to be there. At that point, there's potential to say, hey, we want to write an offer, but my clients don't like these selections. Can we choose these other selections? During COVID, it was really tough because at the very beginning, they said yes, and then they realized that they couldn't get the parts or the stuff because of just all the supply chain issues. And so they, since then, have kind of moved away from allowing those changes to be made. And some of them still will, like again, the higher price point, but everything that we talk about today is going to be kind of like that starter to kind of mid price point, and then the custom higher price point is going to be totally different, but we'll talk about that as well. The interesting thing for us regarding the timelines is managing the expectations for our clients throughout the entire process. It's not super often that when you're working with a buyer who is buying a resale home, that you're going to be working with them for, like, actively working with them for a full year. Pretty common for a build job. So knowing kind of what your buyer is looking for as far as communication. Typically the builder will also have their own reps keeping the buyers and hopefully you in the loop on what's going on, where the build is in the process. One of the things that I had to do when I was a toll was with the build jobs, I'd walk them every single week. So I'd walk 40 houses a week, taking pictures of everything. Hey, installation went in today. Here's what your house looks like. It is an incredibly high stress situation for a lot of buyers. So managing their feelings as well as their expectations is also super important, because the builders don't necessarily care how they're feeling. That's our job to care. And so they're more likely than not, the builders are the ones who are like, if you don't like it, back out. We're keeping your earnest money, which we know that's not what our buyers need or want. So we're the middleman between the builder, who their job is to build the house, and the listing agent, their job is to protect the builder. Our job is to protect our people. So, by the way, Karen, how far along is the build that you are working on with Connor? Another thing, so with the costs with a build job, typically they can lock in their prices because they do a ton of business with whoever their suppliers are. But for the one-offs, the Connor constructions, the super expensive houses, sometimes they'll say, hey, we aren't 100% sure what this is going to cost because we don't know until we order it. And that'll be up to the buyer to decide, okay, is it worth it? Is it not? During COVID, just kind of a quick little story, I had some clients who were looking at building with a local builder, and they said, hey, you want to write an offer? Great. So cool, what's the price of the house? And they said, well, you tell us what you're willing to pay for it, and we'll stay under that budget. And I was like, no, that's not how, no. But they were trying to figure it out just like we were because of COVID, because of supply chain stuff. And so they didn't want to lock themselves into something they couldn't fulfill. They're not doing that anymore, thankfully. But I was like, this is interesting. I don't think I've ever seen that before. But brand new permitting process. Okay. Hubble surprisingly good at communication. Yes. So there's a couple different, there's production builders, which are like the CBH, Hubble, KB Homes, Hayden Homes, Richmond America, Toll, and a couple other ones, but they focus on just pumping houses out. So those guys are the ones who their systems are pretty dialed in. You're gonna get better communication from those guys because they work for the builder only. The other ones will have an agent who maybe the agent's with Silver Creek or with Homes of Idaho, and they happen to rep 7 different builders. Those ones you're probably gonna get less communication because they're, from what I've found, they're kind of expecting us to be more involved than the production builders are. On the flip side, the production builders are the ones who are happy. Well, I gotta be careful what I say. In my experience, working with the production builders, if they can find a way to not pay you, they will. So, which leads me to, when you have somebody who you think might be interested in new construction at all, actually, even if you don't, it's kind of a good rule of thumb when you're in your buyer consultation, which you should be doing before you get started. That's just my opinion, but is to, hey, if you're interested at all in any new construction, if you happen to go to a new community, just let me know. If I can be with you, great. If I can't, I'll call ahead, because those folks are going after procuring cause. And so if they show up and they say, yeah, I'm not signed with any agent, you're kind of out of the deal. And they'll play the game of, well, you can still help them, but we're not paying you, so they can pay you. And it's like, okay, great, awesome. So just be careful with that. But Karen, by the way, and I'm gonna keep asking you questions because I never worked with Connor Construction, but I do know him. How have they been for you, the agent? Are they pretty open, pretty communicative, pretty willing to work with you, or is it pretty difficult? Interest rates and financing options. The bigger builders all now have their own lenders that they either partner with or that are under their company. If they're under their company, they're going to be able to get you your clients a good deal. They're difficult to work with because it's one loan officer for the entire valley typically, and so the communication is, in my experience, has not been phenomenal from the lending side of things. But they sometimes will have certain products that other lenders don't offer, whether that's a certain lock for a lower price or because they do so many deals. And then interest rates, when they were fluctuating, it's hard when you lock in the very beginning because you don't know, hey, what's my interest rate going to be when we close? So for a build job, like, yeah, you can go into it thinking, hey, right now rates are at 6.5, but then 8 months from now, what if they're at 9? Like, so make sure you're having that conversation with your buyers because they have to have some kind of contingency plan for that. But very good to work with. Awesome. Okay, cool. Contingent on sale of home. It's going to be builder specific. Some are going to allow the contingencies. Some will not. Right now, specifically Toll, and I know this guy talked to me yesterday about this, but they do allow contingent, but you have to be under contract. So if you're selling your house, if you're under contract, you can write an offer with them. If you are not, they will not allow that offer. They do price increases some certain times of the year. It's like every 3 weeks, and certain times of the year, it's like every month and a half, 2 months. It just depends on where the market is. The builders, one thing I will give them a huge credit for is they see the writing on the wall before a lot of us do, because they do so much production, and they can tell, like, hey, it's kind of slowing down. We need to start offering. So anytime you see Corey Barton like do a huge price cut and offer a ton of incentives, usually that means he's hesitant because they have too much inventory and he's not sure what the future is going to look like. So they'll start to offload stuff. He's actually this is a fun fact, but he's one of the largest landowners in Idaho. He buys it all up. But anyway, property taxes and HOA fees. So HOA fees will be set ahead of time. The builder will know that. Property taxes, they will not know that because we're taxed in arrears. So the tax bill won't come out until the year after. And the first bill will be just on the value of the land. And then it kicks into the assessed value. So that first year, taxes will be super, super low because they're only being taxed on the land. But then that next year is when it kicks up to the actual taxed value. In order to find that, it's not hard as long as you're in, well, any county, but the county website will have the levy rate on it, and I'll show you guys how to get there in a little bit. But if your buyers are curious on, hey, what are our taxes going to look like? You just take whatever whatever you estimate the assessed value to be, which typically on a new construction is going to be pretty close to what the sales price is, and then you multiply it by the levy rate, and then if it's a primary, then you can take off the homeowner's exemption, but if it's not, then it is what it is. But that's a good way to give them an idea on what to expect for taxes, and the lender should be able to do that also, but it doesn't hurt for us to be able to be like, hey, heads up, here's what you could potentially expect. And then we talked about the supply chain and rising costs. Okay. Moving into spec versus build. So build job, typically you'll be able to choose whichever subdivision well, actually, let me back up. So the important things to figure out with your buyers is, okay, are they looking for a specific builder, or are they looking for a specific location, or are they looking for a specific plan? Because all of those things can affect which builder they end up working with. But typically, they'll choose a subdivision and choose a lot. This is for an actual build job. They'll say, okay, I want this lot and I want this house on it. And the builder will be able to say, yes, this house will fit, great, let's go ahead and write it up. But then you get to choose your floor plan and your colors and your fixtures and your finishes and any upgrades, and you can do all of that up front. It's what they actually expect, is it to be done up front, and then they start the build process and they do all the permitting and all that stuff. So it can be very customized to your client depending. And then the completion timeframes are going to vary, but typically for a build job, 8 months to a year is kind of what can be expected right now. For the spec homes, those are typically move-in ready, like we talked about, or they're already decided by the builder. There's not much of a selection process, if any, on those. These ones, you're more likely to be able to negotiate on, because the builders are not going to want to have them sitting. It's hard. It's actually seems dang near impossible to negotiate on a build job, because basically we're coming to them and saying, hey, here's exactly what we want. And they're saying, all right, we'll build it for you. We're not going to give you anything in return. The spec home, it's like, okay, fine, take it off our plate. We'll give you this. So if you're looking for negotiation ability, spec's going to be your better route typically. Questions so far? Assessor. Okay. So moving on to building on bare land versus in a subdivision. So the custom builders are going to allow you to build on bare land. The production builders are not. They're going to put you in a subdivision, which again is why you kind of need to figure out with your buyers, like, okay, what's important to you? Are you looking for, well, first off, their budget, because if their budget's $500, but they say they want a custom home, you have to have that hard conversation with them. But with on the land side for the customs, really the only limit would be, is the land available and can your buyers afford it? And can the builder that they want to build with build on it? Typically they can, as long as the person can own it. And then they go through the whole permitting process. If they are on land that's not within the city limits, might have to look into septic testing and reporting, getting a septic inspection or septic installed. But sometimes they can run it from the city and plug you into city service. And then they got to go through the soil testing to make sure that the soil is okay to build on. When I was working with Toll, one of the things that they had an issue with was in Cartwright Ranch, they were building. They had just announced that they were building there, and they were taking samples, and they could not build. They were like, hey, we're going to build today, and they take a sample, and for whatever reason, too much moisture in the ground or not enough. I don't remember what it was, but they had to keep pushing back, and so they came up to a lot of issues. They finally got it figured out, but there was another builder who built, I don't know if it was one builder or multiple, but they built in the foothills. I don't know if you ever saw the article about the houses that were sliding down the hill. So somebody didn't do their job properly with the soil testing to ensure that the house wouldn't move. So it's important. Well reports, again, if you're not going to be on city water, that would be important. Wells are not cheap to build or to drill, and then running utilities, and then land loans are going to be different than building loans. So there's land loans, there's building loans, and then there's just typical purchase loans. Land and building loans are going to have higher interest rates typically. There are some lenders who have products that will roll into a conventional loan after the house is completed. And if anybody's interested in those, I can shoot you guys a couple of contacts for that, but it really all just depends. The more risk for the lender, the higher they're going to charge. Just kind of straightforward. And then on the subdivision side, those are nice because the builder will come in and they'll do all the curbing and all the streets and sidewalks and the utilities, they'll run them all into the subdivision. That's nothing that anybody has to worry about except for the developer. So they've already been developed. They have the lots already planned out. Everything's already run to the lots, and then the builder just comes in, builds their house, and connects it to the utilities and water and all that stuff. And they also include amenities. So if that's important to your buyers, you probably don't want to go the land route because there's no amenities unless all they want is a backyard with forest. Then great, there's your amenity. But the developers will put those amenities in a subdivision. Okay. Actually, before I forget, I'm going to pause for 1 second, and I'm going to take us to the assessor's website, which is where you can find the levy. So let's just go Ada County. If you go to the assessor's website, go to property assessment records search. I accept the terms, okay. Let's see. I need a new construction house. Sorry, 1 sec. Let's go, hey, stop. Let's go. Come on here. I don't know how to use Zillow. All right. And let's go with this one. That's Nampa. Sorry, guys. Hold, please. There we go, Meridian. Okay. So we're going to go with 2545 Cavern. So I'm going to go 2545. Also with this, even if there's a like East Cavern, this is not going to like putting East. So you'll just put Cavern. Search. Let's see what comes up here. Great. So this is the assessor's picture that they got of it. The valuation you're going to see, it should be, hopefully I'm right here. All right, cool. So here's the valuation, under $200,000. However, it's listed for $900,000. So they're only going to be taxed the first year on this $200,000. So then you're going to go down to tax districts.
That's the first calendar year, like January they buy in January through December.
So it's January through June. Well, it's halfway through the year. So we get taxed. Yeah. They come out in, I think, June. I don't know. I need to double check that, but I'll get back to you on that one. Okay. So anyway, sorry, going back to the levy. So then you'll just take the total levy rate, which actually is right down here. So 0.0048. Hit copy, throw it into a calculator, or just Google times, let's just go with the value of 899.9. Okay, so roughly 4386 a year. If they have the homeowner's exemption, minus 125, or is it 150 now? Anyway, so it'll go down, but that's how you figure it out. Pretty simple. Always with the caveat of, hey, it's not going to be exact, but just an estimate for you. And then if it does get assessed for less, then great. If it gets assessed for more, that's when you can go back to the assessor, or your buyers can go back to your assessor and say, hey, no, we only paid this much for it. But when they fill out their homeowner's exemption form, they don't have to say how much they paid for it. Let the assessor do their thing. Typically, they're going to undervalue it. That's what we want. All right. And then also, if they're curious of where the taxes are going to go for that specific house, it literally lists them out right there. So, and then I'll show you the taxes from last year. Like last year's taxes were $175. Cool, because it was just a lot. Anyway, going back to here. Anybody have any questions about the assessor's website at all? Okay. All right. Contracts. So there are different contracts, obviously, for different things. So with a custom home, that's an RE22 typically, or the builder may have their own contract. Toll Brothers, CBH, Hubble, I think, all the production builders pretty much have their own contracts. So you'll seldom will you use an RE21 on a new construction home. But if you do, it's going to be the RE21 plus that builder addendum. That's just their big CYA to say, hey, if X, Y, or Z happens, you can't sue us, or we're going to take your earnest money, or whatever. So definitely, if you get the RE21 plus an addendum, definitely read through that well. Have your clients read through it well. It wouldn't hurt to recommend, if they're like nervous, it wouldn't hurt to recommend them to have a real estate lawyer read it. I mean, I've never had that, but it's always safer for us. And then an RE22 is that new construction contract. So those are way more in depth. They have, actually, here we have them out there, but they're way more in depth. A lot more information is needed. So, I mean, things like down to the nitty gritty of the R value of the house, which is like the insulation value. So you need to know that to put that in your contract. I've never had to fill out an RE22, but I've looked it over. I'm like, wow, you need a lot of stuff. So I don't actually know how often those get used, just to be very frank, but that is an option. Most builders now are doing their own contracts because they're written by lawyers, they are thick, and they protect them to the end of the earth. So. Okay.
So what's the process then for writing an offer with a builder? You ask them to provide the contract to you, and then submit to your clients with purchase price, everything, or do they fill it out for you, kind of thing?
Yeah, great question. So the question was, what's the process if you have somebody who wants to build? Do you write it up, or do you go to the builder and say, hey, can you write it up? It depends is the answer, but typically what I do is I'll call the agent if you can build the relationships with the builder agents, it makes your life so much easier because they are willing to do a lot more for people who are nice, just like every human. But it probably wouldn't be shocking, but the amount of flack that they get from outside agents sometimes blows my mind. Like they're literally just here to, like, yes, they're here to help the builder, but like ultimately to help us. They make our job so much easier. But they will have, like Toll has like an intake form. So I call her up and I say, hey, Brooke, we want to write this offer on this house. Here's what they want to offer. Also use that time to say, hey, realistically, and this is where the relationship comes in, realistically, like, what can we offer? Like, how low can we go, or how much can we get back, or whatever. Hopefully Corey's not listening to this. A few of the CVH gals that I've worked with, that I continue to work with, are phenomenal. They'll be like, you can get a lot, and they'll put more than I would expect to ask for. And sometimes they get it, sometimes they don't. Most of the times they do, because they understand what the builder needs out of it, which is cool, and they just want to get the deal done. But so I'll say, hey, and then they'll send, it's like Toll sends an email to the buyers, and the buyers fill out like a little form. They fill it out with their info, and then it gets sent back to the builder, and then they input it into their contract. And then they send the contract over to you and your buyers for signature. I always tell my buyers, hey, don't sign this yet. Let me look through it. Like, you're going to get it. When you get it, just look through it. Don't sign it. Wait for me to give you the go-ahead, unless you guys want to. But I'm letting you know, like, just wait. So and sorry to keep going back to you, Karen, but was it a RE22 or was it a builder contract for Connor? And did you go, is it Denise Theory, I think? Did you go to her and have her write it, or what did that look like? But anyway, they'll get it all done. They'll get it all written. And then once it's signed, everything's done electronically now, just like everything else. It'll go back to them. They'll send it to the office for signature. Once it's signed and ratified, you have an accepted contract, and that's when everything starts to go. Earnest money is another thing to ask about when you're talking to a builder. And sorry to keep saying toll, like literally I'm in the middle of a toll deal, so that's why it's on my head, but toll requests or requires it upon offer. So even if like it doesn't get accepted, you have to at least have shown that you're sending it, and if it doesn't get accepted, they don't accept it. But yeah, it's interesting. But and ask them like what the minimum is. So like theirs is 2%, I think. But some of them most of them are 1-ish, depending, and that's also negotiable. So they'll say, hey, if your buyers can't do 1% right now, can they do 0.5% right now, and then 0.5% in 2 months or a month or whatever, which can be beneficial. Denise will write it. It's a huge contract. Yep. So with Connor Construction, massive contract. This is not it's not a bad thing to say. I'm sure he's been sued a couple times because he's been in business for so long. So all of that is just because somebody at some point tried to come after somebody for something. So that's why the contracts are as large as they are. But yeah, so it sounds like even in the custom, they're doing the builder's rep is writing it all up. With that, make sure you're triple checking, because just like us, they're human. They are going to make mistakes also. They have a compliance department to make sure that they don't have mistakes, but they don't always catch everything. So just make sure, because sometimes it can be big. Has anybody seen a build? Have you done any deals yet? Either of you?
Right.
Okay. Which builder? Hubble. Okay. How was that?
It wasn't bad.
Yeah.
And I found a lot of things to be negotiable. They wanted a lot.
They wanted 5% up front? Right, but something, right. Interesting.
And then they wanted like 20% of your upgrades also.
Okay.
I negotiated that way down.
Nice. And they wrote the contract for you?
Yeah, because I submitted like kind of my offer via email to the rep I was working with, and kind of negotiated that for.
Who was it? Who was it?
At the time it was Alyssa.
Oh yeah.
She moved to a different.
So you're out by 16.
Yeah.
Okay. Very cool. Yeah. Huh. Very cool. Which is actually pretty easy for me. Yeah. Okay. So Karen was saying with the Connor Construction one, Denise, the listing agent or the builder's agent, she wrote it up, and she said it's actually pretty easy for her, which is nice. It does make it easier on us, and it's an extra step of just making sure everything looks good. She also recommended to her clients, hey, just have a real estate lawyer look through this, especially when you get into those $1 million, $2 million, $3 million, anything custom, because if there's any loopholes, you want to know about it. Alrighty. Any other notes on here? Also, you guys can ask Krista if you guys are like, this is, or there's tons of agents who are willing to help. Like, I'd be willing to help them. My office is down the hallway, but if you ask the brokers, like, hey, I just got this contract, or if you're on the internal Facebook group, you can post, hey, I have a client who's interested in this builder. Anything that I should be aware of? People will be pretty honest with you. So use your resources. Okay, the process. So expect variation. There's my little asterisk. Also, I did not make this PowerPoint, so I'm just trying to follow along as best I can. So the first thing, which whether you have a new build or not, the first thing that you should be doing is get that buyer representation agreement signed, or at least have a buyer consultation, which is where you can sit down with them, really get to know who they are, what they're looking for, how you can best help them, because some people just want an agent who's going to come in, do their job, and leave them alone. Some people want that hand-holding, the over-communication, the things that I like to do, but knowing kind of where they are in that, on that ladder, I guess, is important. But get that representation established, because worst case scenario, if the builder does try to exclude you, depending on your relationship with the buyer, you still have that agreement with them. And you can potentially leverage that, not against your buyer, but against the builder. I can talk about this because my experience. Toll Brothers, last year I did a deal with them, and last year I had a client who went to them, and they were at the contract, and I said, hey, what's going on? I'm like, oh, you're not part of this. And I was like, what? Yeah, I am. They're my clients. I have a buyer rep. And they said, well, we don't care. That's not between you and us, it's between you and them. And so then I had to have the conversation with buyers. I was like, guys, they're like, I can help you, but they're not willing to pay me. I don't work for free. So like, what do you want to do here? Thankfully, I was able to nag my booty off, and I was like, no, you guys are paying me, so they ended up paying me. But it doesn't always happen. So just protect yourself with that. Buyer registration, that's with the builder. That can be a simple call. Hey, my buyers are heading in to check out your community. Here's who they are. So that way, when they do come through, they're already registered with you. Sometimes they're online. Actually, a lot of times they're online. But I have found that just calling them, A, starts that relationship and shows that we're willing to play ball with them. And then B, it's quick. Hey, here's who they are. They're coming in. And then they'll put them in the system, and you're all good to go. Okay, all in versus options versus landscape, all that stuff. So one thing, they should be very upfront about all of this stuff, but one of the questions to ask is, okay, I see your price in the MLS. Is that just the house? Is that the house and the lot? What's included? Oftentimes they won't include landscaping. It's like Toll Brothers probably won't include landscaping, but like Hubble and CBH and Hayden, they all do within the price. And all of those guys, the price is the price because, well, actually, Hubble does build jobs, yeah? Okay. Was it the price is the price for you, or was it, hey, here's the lot price, here's the house price, all that? Okay.
Yeah, lot price, home price, and options.
Okay. Which, okay, that makes sense for a build job. For a spec, typically it's going to be all-in price. What you see is what you get. But with the build job, make sure to ask all those questions or have your buyer ask them if landscaping is included. And this is small, but like, okay, well, what's included? Because maybe it's just sod and sprinklers. Cool. Can we negotiate something better? What kind of options are they offering? What's the deposit on the options? You were saying 20% of the options is what Hubble requires. Something around there, yeah. Most builders are going to do that. If not at the very beginning, they're going to do it once you hit a certain threshold of value. So I think, again, I'm not Toll, but Toll, you have like up to like X amount in upgrades. If you go over that, then they require 20% of what's gone over as a deposit, just to keep people in there and all that stuff. So Hubble just does the front yard. Okay, good to know. So Hubble just does the front yard. So again, ask the builder's rep. They'll tell you. Doesn't mean you can't get it negotiated in, but at least you can know where you're starting from. The time frame on the build, ask them, ask the agent, because they're going to know better. And then when you're talking to your clients, just let them know that, hey, yeah, they say this. Just to be safe, you might want to plan for an extra month or so, because you never know. Things happen, life happens. Contract preference, that's just a call to the agent. Hey, you're a contractor, mine. What do you want? Earnest money, when is it non-refundable? Tolls is non-refundable upon acceptance, which can be tough sometimes, especially if you have buyers who are like, I think I want this. And they're like, actually, no. It's like, well, okay, let's make sure that we actually want this before we write the offer because it's non-refundable. Hasn't happened to me. Just kidding, happened once. But, and how much of it is non-refundable. And then the due diligence periods, so inspection timeframes. So that was one of the questions that we had from online is what to do after the inspection. What to do after inspection. Sarah, are you talking about for Hubble or which builder? Because everyone's going to do it differently. Toll Brothers, they do not accept RE10s. So what they say is, hey, send us the report. What they mean is, we'll fix what we want to fix, depending on the CM. But typically, they'll fix anything they have to. Anything that they think is superfluous, they're probably gonna say no, and they might lean on the National Association of Home Builders (NAHB) guidelines, which says, like, one of them says, hey, if there's an imperfection in the wall, if you can't see it from 6 feet away, it's not an imperfection. Which, okay, sure, to each their own. But it also does matter who the CM is, because some of the CMs are like, no, I'm going to make this thing dialed in and perfect, and some of them are like, well, I'm going to get you the house that I'm required to get you. So, and if anybody has any questions about those, feel free to call me. I'm happy to talk offline about any of that. And so C of O is a certificate of occupancy, which is, after they receive that, is typically means the home's done to a habitable point. That's when they're going to request the inspection be done, and then usually it has to be on a build job. It's like a month prior to closing, so that gives them enough time to get their trades back in there one last time. If you're in the middle of a build job and your buyers are, regardless whether they're like the most chill buyers in the world, or if they're like counting everything and making sure everything and stopping by the house every single day, have that conversation up front of, hey, just letting you know, don't take off the builder too much by being there. And like, if you're not supposed to be in the house without the builder, because it's a safety hazard while they're building. They're going to have their own rules. They're going to make you wear a hard hat or not, whatever. The bigger builders are not afraid to flex their power. So if they have a client who is causing them a lot of heartache and headache, in Toll's contract, they have the right to terminate on anybody at any point for any time, for any reason, which is something else. But which I do understand to a point, because there are some buyers who just do not understand. Like, this is my house. It's like, well, it's not actually your house yet. We're still building it. Yes, it's going to be your house. We want to make it perfect, but they'll come in and do whatever. I had one when I was there. I had one guy who's like, hey, can I come run my own electrical? No, I'm an electrician. And I was like, okay, cool. No, you may not. And yeah, anyway, it's like stuff like that. But just remind them to do their best to not be too whatever. And then if there is an issue, just because, like, let's say I stopped by the house this week, there's a hole in the drywall because one of the trades put a hole in the drywall. Yeah, I'm going to tell the builder. If I show up next week and the hole's not fixed yet, that's okay. It doesn't mean it's not going to get fixed. They just, because they have so many things going, they have to make sure the right people are going to the right houses at the right times, and then they'll get everybody back in there and all that stuff. So, all right. Some of the key points for the transaction. So you're going to have your builder meetings. You have your pre-construction meeting, which is typically with you're going to have your sales, like your meeting with the salesperson to write, or they'll send you the email or the electronic version to write it up. But once you're under contract, you'll have your pre-construction meeting. Every builder's going to do it a little differently with who is there, but typically that's the building team. And they'll sit down with you and say, okay, here's the things that you picked out. Here are your plans. They're all drawn up. Here's what you can expect from us throughout this process. That's a really good meeting for us to be at. It's really important for us to be at, because that, again, solidifies our relationship to the builder with our client. So, hey, this is my client. I'm not just letting them, I'm not just not showing up and getting paid. But then it also shows that, like, we're there to protect our clients. And you can ask questions, and it's pretty cool, pretty in-depth most of the time. And then there's a structural walk, which is after the framing goes up. And it's typically after the rough-ins are in, so that's plumbing, electrical, and HVAC. And so that's when they physically walk through the house with you and your clients and point out, hey, this is what this is what that is. Here's where your central vac's going to be. This is where your thermostat, like stuff like that. Whenever I have one of those, I love to take pictures of the walls, hopefully before installation is in, so that way, and then give them my clients so they know, like, oh, here's where my wires are. Doesn't always work, but kind of a cool thing, like, oh, I didn't think about that. It's like, yeah, well, here you go. Then there's a blue tape walk, which more often than not is combined with the new home orientation. It's like I had one on Wednesday, and it was a new home orientation that paired as a blue tape walk. So they're typically supposed to be doing their own QA. They are doing their own QA walks throughout the process, but then once they get to a certain point, they're going to miss stuff. So that time is for you and your buyers to walk through and point things out of, hey, this needs to be fixed, this needs to be adjusted or whatever. And they'll physically take blue tape, put it on the wall, put it on the things, so that when the trades come back in, they see tape, they know, okay, something around here needs to be fixed, let me find it and fix it. And then there's a final walkthrough to re-inspect all the repairs, all the blue tape repairs that needs to be done. CBH, their new home orientation is a little more in-depth. So it's less blue tapey and more, here is how you operate your home. Here's how you operate your thermostat. Here's how you blow out your sprinklers. Here's this, here's that. Here's where your filters are and how to change them. So again, asking QA, is a quality quality assurance walk. So QA walk is a quality assurance, just to make sure the question was, what is QA? Yeah, it's just to make sure that the quality is where they think it needs to be. Good question. And then definitely make sure, if you can, attend all the builder meetings with your client, because these can be very easy deals for us, but they can also be very time consuming just with the process. So just earn your money, basically. And then closing and escrow, contract timelines. I'm not quite sure what they're wanting me to talk about here, but timelines and contracts. I'm assuming it's like, hey, when do we need to close by? When do we need to sign by? When do the funds need to be there? Which they all should be very similar to a normal purchase. Appraisal, same thing as normal. The appraisal is going to be done typically towards the very end, but with enough time for the appraiser to get the appraisal back. You may run into holdbacks, which is when, let's say the house is done in February and they're not able to put the landscaping in because of the weather. That's going to go on to a holdback, which is money held in title. So your buyers still have to pay everything, but the money's held at the title company. And then once the builder goes in and finishes the work, they get the money released. And usually it's 1.5 times whatever the value is. So it's more of an incentive for the builder to be like, oh, we got to make sure we get back there and do that. And then finalizing with lenders, same thing as a normal deal. Utilities, there's a buyer checklist online if you guys need that on the Silver Creek toolbox. And the order of contractors, this realistically, it can change. But typically, this is kind of what to expect. And this is cool because then you can say, oh, hey, client, hey, Betty, they're installing your windows right now. Well, actually, these should, whatever, it doesn't matter. They're installing your windows right now, which means next we should expect to see whatever, any of those. And so then it makes you look a little more gives you a little more validity of like, yeah, I know what I'm doing. This is cool. But also the builder should be saying that as well. Okay, questions to ask when you approach it. Sorry, we have 4 minutes left. I want to respect your guys' time, so I'm trying to bust through this. All right, questions to ask. We talked about it. So lot cost premium for a build job. Hey, what's the lot going to cost me compared to the house? Those premiums typically are not negotiable, but the upgrades potentially can be, or the house cost potentially can be, but the lots typically are not. They'll have a plat map where you can pick the lot, and they'll bring you out there and say, hey, here's the lot. Does it look good? Make sure it's the correct lot. The orientation of the house, it says lot, but it should say house. I guess a lot as well, but floor plans, elevations, whatever. The structural features included versus what's in the model. So if your buyers are walking through the models, now the builders are making it like pretty obvious. They'll put like a little plaque saying, hey, here's the upgrades in this model. But for a while, it was frustrating because people would walk in, be like, oh, I want that. And the builder goes, oh, actually, we don't do that. we just did this for this model to show that we could do it, but we don't actually offer it. And it's like, okay, great, that's not helpful. So asking them the difference between what they are willing to do versus what's in the model. Always ask about the incentives. Again, that's where the relationship comes in, because maybe they know that there's going to be an incentive that's coming out in 2 days, and maybe it's worth your buyer waiting. Interest rates and loan approvals, asking about their own lenders, what the incentive is for using their lender. Also look up online, or have your clients look up online the reviews for those lenders. Fun fact or tip. Property taxes, we talked about that. Deadlines, warranties, what their warranty is, but it covers. Do they have a warranty team? How big is their warranty team? Because if it's one person for an entire valley, like, that's going to be tough for your buyers to get anything done. Rescission period, which would be more towards the earnest money, and then the earnest money requirements. Stay involved. Knowing the guidelines on visiting the property, we talked about that already. Just make sure they're not there too much and bugging the builder too much and in the builder's way. Always accompany your buyers if you can, if you have the relationship with them and with the builder to where you don't have to be there all the time. Okay, that's between you and them. Providing weekly updates. If the builder doesn't, I'd recommend doing that if you can, or semi-weekly or whatever, bi-weekly, whatever, every other week, whatever that is. And then understanding the process. Most builders will be happy to sit down with you and be like, yeah, here's what the process looks like, and here's how to walk through it, because they want us to be smart so that we can answer questions so that they don't have to. And then just keep asking questions. It might seem like it's too much for them, but that's what they get paid for. And that's what we get paid for. Negotiation. So yeah, more or less, it depends on the builder, depends on their inventory, and it depends on build versus spec. You're gonna have way more power with a spec home than you would with a build job. Unless the spec home's not done yet, then there's probably the same amount as a build job. But if it's done and sitting there, that's when you're gonna have the most negotiation power. And then, let's see, was there any other questions that I missed? I don't wanna miss anything. And I mean, it's time, so. Online, did you guys have any last minute questions? If you wanna email me also, or even shoot me a text with anything that you think of or thought of, I'm here. I'm happy to answer whatever. I'm happy to talk about whatever. Do I know everything about new construction? Absolutely not. But what I do know, I'm happy to share. So that's it. All right, well, thank you all. Appreciate it. Go sell some houses, work with some builders, get some buyers, and thanks for being here, guys. Thank you. And then for you guys, what's one thing that you think I'm missing in this presentation? Thank you. Yes, I'll get you the slides, Sarah. Can you email me, and I will email them over to you, please? Actually, I'll write a little note. I'll find your email.
Or maybe just a list of some of the builders.
Yeah, absolutely. So actually, I think this is not my PowerPoint. I adjusted mine. It's on my computer. I will get that. Do you guys have like 2 minutes to sit here? Okay, I'll go get my computer, and then I will send you my PowerPoint, because in there I have one of the slides has a list of the builders, or links to the builders. And then, yeah. Thank you, Sarah. Yeah, okay, cool. Well, thanks everybody. Let me just turn this off.